Hello everyone, continuation of the lesson. We're going to do 20 minutes of this voidable, void, and unenforceable contract. We'll try to cover all of them. Now, this is article 1390. Okay, basically voidable contracts are valid contracts except that one of the parties is incapacitated to give consent, or the consent was gained through vitiation, mistake, violence, intimidation, undue influence, or fraud. If there's a problem as to consideration or as to object, whether the same is lacking or non-existent, okay, a contract may be declared void, not voidable. Maybe. Okay. These contracts are binding unless they are annulled by the proper action in court. They are susceptible for ratification. Okay, rescissible contracts are not susceptible for ratification, no. But however, okay, rescission is a right and as a remedy will fail if the person who is initiating rescission is not, what do you call this? Is not an innocent party. There. Now, these contracts are still valid unless they are declared void by the proper court. Okay. Action for annulment shall be brought within 4 years. This period shall begin in case of intimidation, violence, and undue influence from the time the defect of the contract ceases. So, if the contract or the defect of the contract ceases, then that's the only time that you can file a action for annulment. Okay. Case of mistake or fraud from the time discovered the same, and when the action refers to contracts entered into by minors and other incapacitated from the time the guardianship ceases. We go back to the fourth sentence here. Fraud or mistake here must not be factual. It must be either legal mistake or legal, or fraud must be of this kind that would vitiate consent. Okay, but not to the degree, okay, as can be committed by violence, intimidation, or undue influence. Now, ratification extinguishes the action to annul a voidable contract, and ratification may be effected expressly or tacitly. Okay, those are the definition of what an express or tacit ratification is. Okay, actually, the law provides a definition of what a tacit ratification is. Okay, and a tacit ratification is a ratification that is not apparent. Case illustrative is Cadano versus Cadano. Okay, you will digest that along with the first case of Osaeta. Okay, I've already finished reading the material on that one. Now, the requisites of implied ratification are the following. These are the requisites. Kindly take note of that. And the requisites for express ratification same as those of implied ratification, except that the former is effected expressly. Okay. Ratification may be effected by the guardian of the person or ward whose consent is or who is not capable of giving consent. Ratification does not require conformity of the contracting party who has not or has no right to bring the action for annulment. In short, conformity of the person who created the reason for annulment or basis for annulment is not important. Okay, it does not cure the defect. Ratification cleanses the contract from all its defects from the moment it was constituted. So we go back and it reverts back to the period of perfection, whether by consent or by delivery. Okay? Actions for annulment of contracts may be instituted by all who are thereby obliged principally or subsidiarily. We've already discussed what subsidiary liability, right, is. So persons who are subsidiary liable are usually liable if the principal liable person did not perform the obligation. Okay. However, persons who are capable cannot allege the incapacity of those with whom they contract, nor can those who exerted intimidation, violence, undue influence, or employed fraud or caused mistake base their action upon these clauses of the contract. Okay. Once who created the grounds for annulment of a contract cannot use those grounds in order to declare the contract void. It's sort of as a penalty. Now, Article 1398. Once a contract has been annulled, it's similar to what actually takes place in a rescission or in a rescission of a rescissible contract. You're supposed to return everything. Okay. Subject matter of the contract with their fruits, then the price with its interest, except in cases provided by law. Okay. In obligations to render service, the value thereof shall be the basis of the damages. Now, when will a individual, okay, who entered into a contract be not obliged to return the same? It is when a person who is incapacitated to give consent actually retains a part of the object of the obligation. He is not required to return the same. It does not amount to an implied ratification. No? It still isn't. Okay, actually there's a provision regarding that, regarding minors or absentees who chose to keep part of the object of the obligation or its price. Article 1399, the defect of the contract consists in incapacity upon the party incapacity is not obliged to make any restitution so far as has been benefited by the thing and the price received by him. See, just like what I was saying a while ago. Okay. Incapacitated persons who cannot give consent, like absentees and minors, okay, are not required to return the property or the object of the obligation, okay, or the object of the contract. When the persons obliged by the decree of annulment to return the thing cannot do so because it has been lost through his fault, he shall return the goods received and the loss of value of the thing at the loss with interest from the same day. Effect of loss of thing to be returned. Okay. Those are the explanations of the author, and this is what is what you call this example. Article 1401, action for annulment of contract shall be extinguished from the thing which is the object thereof is loss through the fault or fraud of the person who has the right to institute the proceeding. Okay. If the right of action is based upon the incapacity of any one of the contract, the loss of the thing shall not be an obstacle to the success of the action unless the said loss took place through the fault or fraud of the plaintiff. There. So loss of the thing, okay, negates the action to have the contract declared null and void, because you can't return anymore the thing. Okay. As long as one of the contracting parties does not restore what in virtue of the decree of anonymity is bound to return, the other cannot be compelled to comply with what is incumbent upon him. Now, we go to the last provision in voidable contracts. Remember, voidable, unenforceable, and rescindable contracts are actually valid contracts. They ought to be respected and they ought to be complied with until and unless they are declared to be unenforceable, rescinded, or declared void. Okay? These are unenforceable contracts. Article 1403. Those that require to be in the statute of frauds do not comply with the statute of frauds. That's paragraph 2 of Article 1403. Those where both parties are incapable of giving consent to a contract. Okay? It is unenforceable. Now, the issue on enforceability is rather the documentation or the enforcement of the contract. Those are the only two issues in an enforceable contract. Okay, it's unenforceable because there is no document evidencing the same. It is unenforceable because one of the part or both of the parties are incapable of giving consent to a contract. Either both are minors or insolvent. It is capable of being ratified because insolvency is not a permanent thing, so it's minority. Now, unauthorized contract, that's a definition. It's usually committed by people who pretend to be or purport to be agents. Okay. There. Interestingly, the application of statute of frauds is applied in these following cases: Actoran vs. Val, Espiritu vs. CFI Cavite, and Western Mindanao Lumber Company Incorporated vs. Medallion. Kindly include in your comment which case do you want me to actually explain to you, and then Cuyugan vs. Santos. The whole application of the unenforceable contracts. Okay. These are actually examples of those who need those contracts or agreements that need to be in writing as required by the statute of frauds. And there, Article 1406, 1404, and 1405. Agency, okay, and contracts of agent are ratified by failure to object to presentation of oral evidence. So again, we go back to the classification of unenforceable contracts. Those that cannot be proven, at least the document itself cannot be proven. Second, those who are entered beyond authority or unauthorized. And third, those contracts entered where both parties are incapable of giving consent. 1357 is the requirement that a contract should be in an actual form. Okay, you can actually raise it as a right. It is not a reformation of a contract, but rather an enforcement of a contract that it conforms to its actual form. Article 1407, in a contract where both the parties are incapable of giving consent, express or implied ratification by the parent or guardian, as the case may be, of one of the contracting parties shall give the contract the same effect as if only one of them are incapacitated, in which case it can be declared as voidable or void. And if the other party ratifies it, it is deemed to have been cured of its void character or voidable character. If the ratification is made by parents or guardians, case may be, both the contracting parties, the contract should be validated from inception. Hence, there is no more the classification that formerly the contract has as unenforceable does not exist anymore. Article 1408, unenforceable contracts cannot be assailed by third persons. This is what makes unenforceable contracts different from rescissible contracts. It cannot be assailed by third persons. Avoid inexistent contracts. We will continue just a while later. Okay, right now, if you have any case that you want me to discuss, okay, kindly include it in the comment and I'll provide the discussion regarding that case. Thank you, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.